across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you now until 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. And coming up at midnight, it is the phone-in, so it's a full hour of you and me talking. It's the only place on the station that does this. Just full hour, no guests, nobody else, just you and me. So please do take advantage of that. I'll be very lonely if you don't. What I want to talk to you about is the welfare reforms that are heading our way, or at least that's what Keir Starmer would like. He says that we need to cut the bill, we need to cut the expense of welfare, particularly that pertaining to disability, if we are to be able to sustain a decent welfare state. Now, he wants to cut $5 billion a year for the next few years, which means that PIP is going to be much more difficult to get. There'll be other problems with it as well. Now, look, we cannot sustain it. Almost every year, the city the size of Leicester goes on to these disability payments. So bearing in mind that more and more people are projected to go on to these payments, it's not sustainable. It really isn't sustainable. I don't know how we're even affording it now. So if someone has to be cut from these payments, who should it be? Because at the moment, there's 120 backbenchers that are plotting against Sir Keir Starmer on his bill to get this through. He is oddly going to be relying on the Tories to vote for this because he won't get the votes from Labour. Will he have to U-turn on it? I don't think he can afford to, either financially nor politically. If he's seen to U-turn on this, it will be a political disaster. It could actually mark the end of his premiership, because he will be seen as being far too weakened by pressure to be of any use whatsoever to this country. So he will be seen as the taco of, or Sacco it would be, wouldn't it? Starmer always chickens out compared to the taco that Trump always chickens out. So he can't afford to back off from this. So I suspect that the changes are coming. Who should be removed? Who should not get these payments? Because somebody's going to have to make that decision. So I'd love to hear from you at midnight as to who you think should be cut from these benefits. 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. You can WhatsApp as well on the same phone number, 0344 499 1000. And also you can leave a voice note if you'd like, and I'll play that out a little bit later as well. So that's coming up at midnight. Before that, we have the fabulous Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. He's going to be going through the newspapers for Wednesday. We've got Johnny Hearn here. He's back with us, filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. He's got some excellent, he's going to be looking at 28 years later. I'm very excited by that movie. Phil Dave will be with us as well, talking tech. So all of that is to come. But first, NATO. NATO countries have gathered today in the Netherlands at The Hague for a historic summit that could unite them around a spending pledge. All 32 countries, as part of NATO, will have to sign the pledge to increase their spending on defence to 5%. There are some outliers. I think Spain and Belgium are sort of arguing the toss at the moment, but they will still have to sign this. 3.5% will be spent on hardware. The other 1.5% will be spent on cybersecurity and intelligence gathering. That's the way they're dividing up this 5%. However, nearly a third of the alliance members have not reached the existing spending target. In fact, Spain, I think, is just 1.3%. The new target will be to spend that 5% of the size of their economies, measured by GDP, on core defence, along with those other areas. It's the first NATO meeting since Trump was re-elected US president. And talking of Trump, just before boarding Air Force One heading to Europe, the president shared a screenshot by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, praising him for his decisive action on Iran at the weekend. It looked like it was a private message, but you know, Donald Trump, there's no such thing, and he just put it out there on Truth Social. Mark Rutte has been asked to comment on it, and he said, well, there was nothing secret in there. Well, there wasn't anything secret, but it's a bit toe-curningly sucky-uppy. That's what I would say. So that's what's happening with NATO. They've got big meetings all day tomorrow. Apparently, Donald Trump is planning to meet with Zelensky, or probably could meet up with Zelensky. The fact that Zelensky is there and being photographed as part of the NATO alliance, I think, is really going to hack Putin off. He obviously does not want Ukraine to be part of NATO, because then they'd be protected from his wants and wishes. But he will be fuming that Zelensky has been invited along and is there for the world to see in the group of 32. So let's talk about NATO, what its future might look like, and if we can really sustain NATO if Donald Trump becomes difficult. Professor Julian Richards joins me now, security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Good to see you, Julian. Thank you so much for joining me. Just to that point, was this a deliberate NATO finger up to Vladimir Putin to have Zelensky in that photograph?
Well, it certainly was aimed at keeping Putin guessing. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest questions for NATO recently has been Trump's stance on Russia and Ukraine, respectively. We see he's waxed and waned on that. He was initially very critical and aggressive towards Zelensky in Ukraine. But then became fed up with Russia when it was continued to carry out strikes in civilian areas and so on. So I think there's a great deal of uncertainty, but it will certainly, for Putin, will not be what he wants to see. So even though Zelensky isn't at the top table for the core meetings at this NATO summit, he's clearly there, and he's clearly talking to everyone and being presented as if he's a de facto member of NATO.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure that Donald Trump has said he'll probably meet him tomorrow. We don't know with Donald Trump. He could very easily just leave straight after the meeting or somewhere in the middle of it and not see Zelensky. Do you think that Putin will be pressuring Trump to not carry on with that meeting tomorrow, to not see Zelensky? Because again, that will be seen as a slight against Putin.
Yes, I mean, whether he will directly try and speak to Trump and try and pressure him into that, or whether he'll just wait and see what happens. In the meantime, he's been continuing, or the Russians have been continuing to pummel Ukrainian cities with some of the largest ever waves of strikes since the war began. So he's clearly signalling his ongoing intentions there. As you said, Petrie, with Trump, you just never know. And it could be a quick snatched meeting. It could be he might decide to make a point of going off without actually talking to Zelensky. None of us, including Putin, knows what's going to happen. And there's a lot of pantomime going on here, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Trump even knows at this stage whether he's going to do it or not. Let's have a look at the relationship that Donald Trump has with NATO. He's not a fan. You know, historically, the only time that Article 5 of NATO has ever been triggered was to support America, to support American troops in the folly that were the wars in the Middle East. But he seems to not remember that moment. He seems to not realise, because he said not long ago, oh, well, if Article 5 was triggered again, you know, if we needed them, would they come to our help? I doubt it. And it's kind of like, does nobody sit him down and say, look, do you want to know the history of NATO, why it was formed, you know, what good it's supposed to do in the world, and the only time it's ever been triggered was to defend the USA?
Yeah, I mean, Trump and the Americans, to be fair, have two big issues with NATO, or two big potential issues with NATO, and these we should remember that these have actually been rumbling along in American politics for quite some years before Trump came along. Actually, to be fair to him, which I'm not always fair to him, but one is the general natural tendency in the US to want to be isolationist, to not want to get embroiled in these forever wars, as Trump calls them. And he's not the first president to feel that, you know, but they always seem to get dragged in somehow. And the other, of course, is the absolutely justified rancor that the Americans feel about the way that they're propping up NATO financially, very substantially. And you mentioned some countries like Spain and other NATO members earlier who've really not stepped up to the mark at all in terms of their contribution. So these are understandable annoyances that the Americans have felt, and in fact it goes way back before Trump. Bush and others used to say that this was a growing problem. So but of course Trump is the sort of person to do something about it, and that's what's got everyone caught on the hop. So those issues haven't gone away. Trump is still, despite all the world events and the fact that he's had to get sucked into taking military action and so on, he's still deeply worried about the fact that America gets sucked into these conflicts elsewhere in the world, and that the Americans are paying most of the money for it. So that is a big worry for NATO, I think, and for the European members of NATO.
So he will be somewhat of a conquering hero at the NATO meetings, if not for the action in Iran. Then certainly, according to Mark Rutte, the getting all of those NATO members to agree to a substantial rise in spending as to their GDP. He's being praised by, as we saw, rather embarrassingly for Mark Rutte, that this was a note sent to Donald Trump that he then publicised. But he's not wrong, is he, that it was down to Trump scaring the horses, scaring Europe and saying, look, if you don't pay, we're not going to be there for you.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, Trump is clearly strutting around at the moment, feeling very pleased with himself, and with some justification, as you say. The American intervention in Iran does seem to have brought what was looking like a really very worrying situation. You know, we all thought the whole region was at risk of becoming engulfed in war. The Americans somehow, under his leadership, have managed to bring it back from the brink. So he's justifiably very cock a hoop about that. And you're right, Rutte's somewhat uncomfortable message.
Yeah,
it sort of makes us all squirm in our seats, really. But and we must remember that this comes on the back of quite a few promises that Trump made when he was becoming elected, that he was going to sort Gaza out in 24 hours, and he was going to end the Ukraine war in a couple of days, and he's actually failed on all of those things, really, and found that it's all very much more complicated than he thought it was. So to have a kind of victory like the one he's just had in the Middle East, he's gonna labour that point and hope that we forget all the other aspects that haven't gone so well, really.
Look, they've got a spending review coming up in the autumn, the US military. It is anticipated that there'll be no new funding for Ukraine from America, but perhaps more serious than that we could start to see a drawdown of American presence across Europe. Now, this is something that Obama also suggested that might have to happen, that American troops would need to be removed and redeployed towards Asia. This NATO meeting, will they be trying to persuade Donald Trump to keep his troops in Europe? Because if they do start to draw them down, if they do start to move them out, then that is going to be music to Putin's ears.
Yes, absolutely. So America still has about 80,000 troops deployed in Europe, which is quite a number. That's slightly more than the entire size of the British Army, for example, at the moment. So, and the longer term reorientation, as you rightly say, Petrie, and that again, that goes back many years, is towards the Asia-Pacific theatre. The Americans really want to concentrate on there, because that's where they see the real medium to longer term threat is coming from. So Trump definitely will want to try and move towards that drawdown, and the Europeans, to a certain extent, they're kind of trying to anticipate this. I mean, there's both in terms of trying to think about a renewed European defence structure. The current government under Keir Starmer in the UK has obviously become much more Europe-oriented, not just in defence, but in a range of other issues. So there are opportunities for Europe there to try and think about, if Trump does follow through on this big drawdown, what's Europe going to do? Europe is going to have to step up to the plate, because remember, we are the ones sat here with Russia on our borders. America isn't. So we kind of have to, if he does follow through on this, which he may well do, we have to find ways of stepping up to the plate, really. And it's not impossible that reorganised European defence couldn't plug a lot of the gap, but it certainly couldn't do it anytime soon. And Putin knows that, and that's why he's playing for time, really. The longer he can string this out, the better it plays out for him, because he's got time on his hands, whereas we haven't so much. So.
I mean, for example, if Germany were to lose Ramstein, and the protection that gives that country. I mean, I know that they are worried about Ramstein being removed. It's a massive place. It's a very, very busy. It's practically a city, and that will impact particularly Germany's protection.
Yes, it will, and that's. It's not a coincidence that Germany has become much more forward-leaning within the European theatre in terms of moving from its previously very pacifistic role to being, one of the leading players in military support to Ukraine, because they can see the way the wind's blowing. And of course, if you go slightly further east to Poland, it's even more. They're even more worried about it, and they're definitely ramping up their defence spending way above the
I think
NATO
they're at 4.7% now, aren't they? Something like that.
Indeed, yes. So the further east you go, the more you feel these chill winds. That the combination of the Russian threat and the threat of America, following through on pulling out very largely. So Europe's got some work to do. Germany, it's good in a way that Germany are much more engaged in that now, and are much more trying to be a much bigger player. The UK and Germany are leading on the logistical supply of arms to Ukraine at the moment, and that's a sensible thing. But it's a big worry, and if you're in Germany, it feels even more present than it does here in the UK.
And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because in Germany, with the new government there, they were very much looking to France as a nuclear power to extend its umbrella, and by by association, I expect Britain as well will be asked to provide greater cover for non-nuclear countries across the bloc. Why hasn't that already been done? Is there a sense that if Britain and France do step up and say, yes, we will provide you with nuclear cover, that America will then take that as an excuse to go would then say, well, you don't need us anymore, you've got your own nuclear protection.
Well, that's always the risk, isn't it? And that's and UK, as we know, with its strategic defence review, has pledged to substantially upgrade the nuclear deterrent, to build some new submarines, to extend that continuous at sea deterrence capability. And as you say, in some ways, that's a bit of a gamble, especially with Trump, because he may well draw exactly that conclusion and say, okay, these guys have listened to what I was saying, and they're sorting themselves out. But in a way, the European states don't really have much of a choice. The threat from Russia is real. It's not going away. It's not a political thing. It's long term. So whether America stays in the game or not, I think it's right and proper, actually, that Europe has to think about the scenarios where Europe largely defends itself from here on in, and that the American support may wither away. So that's the longer term.
That looks like a really weakened NATO in that case. If you don't have America, unless Turkey were to step up with its sizable military and claim that position, then NATO, it would seem, as an alliance, is pretty much a paper tiger.
Well, it would have serious internal conflicts, and I think there's a couple of things to point out here. One is that the American Trump is president at the moment. But he won't be forever, and in fact, he's technically only got about 3 years left.
Yeah.
And unless he finds a clever way of extending his tenure, it's all going to change again in a few years. So, and these big defence plans, the ramping up of GDP proportions on defence, these are long-term plans.
Yeah.
7 to 10 years at least. So, by that time, there will be a different American administration in place, and who knows what the story is going to be. So that's one factor. The other factor is, of course, that there are already quite a lot of divisions within NATO. So, UK, Germany, France have the Nordic countries have a very forward-leaning position. There's not much difference between them. But if there are others like Hungary and Slovakia who are essentially pro-Russian and are not keen on NATO stepping into the breach anyway. And then you have Spain and Italy and Canada, to a certain extent, who just don't seem very keen to ramp up the expenditure to any sort of decent level. So there's already quite a few cracks inside NATO, to a certain extent, which have always been there, but they're being brought into ever starker relief. So NATO's got some work to do, I think, and that's why these summits are so very important at this particular time.
Yeah, just because it's been there for 80 years doesn't mean it's going to still be there in another 8 years even. But,
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's fascinating talking to you. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much indeed. Professor Julian Richards there, security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk and it is Petrie here, and it is also competition time. Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester on July the 19th. We'll also put you up in a hotel and give you £5 grand worth of spending money. Here's everything you need to know and how to enter.
Alright, kid, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and £5 spending money, all you gotta do is text the word WIN to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Sorted. Right, here's all the legal stuff. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You've got to have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com.
So there you go. Good luck. And don't forget that's coming up. So it's in Manchester on July the 19th. Right, also coming up is the phone-in. That's at midnight. And I want to talk to you about the welfare reforms. Now, we've heard about these, we've talked about them before, but we're getting ever closer to them happening. There's going to be a vote on this. However, there are 120 backbench Labour MPs who are against any reforms at all. Now, I'm not sure that is the right way to go, because this is now a bill that is unaffordable, and a city the size of Leicester every year is added to the numbers of people who are claiming PIP or disability benefits. It is not something that we can keep on doing. I mean, everybody will be on it. So what do we do? How do we limit this? And if you had to make the decision, who would be removed from this welfare bill? I mean, the idea is just to not have everybody go on it for any reason whatsoever. But I'm not sure it's that easy. From people I've spoken to in the past about these PIP payments and other payments, they're incredibly difficult to get on. But they can't be that difficult if so many people a year manage to get on them. So I'd like to hear from you if you've been attempting to get PIP or you know somebody who has. Is it really difficult? Is it genuinely that difficult to get these payments? If so, then people are being pretty convincing and perhaps they actually need it. Nobody's against people who absolutely need support. But I think it is unsustainable to give people, everybody that wants it, the support. So I'd like to hear from you. If you had to make the decision, who, what illness, what thing would you remove, or how would you make it more sustainable? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well, put the word talk and then your message to 87222.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here until 1 o'clock. And just to remind you that coming up at the top of the hour we have Kevin Schofield, who is going to be going through Wednesday's front pages for us. But before that, it is time for Phil Dave, who's a broadcaster and editor here at Talk. Hello.
Good evening, Lady Hosken. How are you?
Good evening. I'm extremely well. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right, thank you. Do you know, we both look like I look like a sort of black and white version.
You do actually.
Of what you're wearing.
What I'm wearing. So you got the full colour and then the monochrome.
You've sort of gone full on colour, and I've just gone for my usual grayscale look.
Yeah, no, it does look like a box of crayons has vomited on my shirt. I have to be honest with you, but there you go. Let's talk about...
If you're listening on radio, that's quite the image.
That is quite the image. You see, I painted a picture for those listening on radio, and it's a very accurate one.
Crayon vomit.
Crayon vomit. Let's talk tech now, and these AI drone gunships to fly alongside the Apache helicopters.
Well, do you know, the reason why I chose this is because obviously there's so much talk of war going on at the moment. So I just thought that it was interesting to look in to see what the world of technology is doing to help the world of warfare, if you like. And the UK military is arguably sort of stepping into the future with this bold new project, which is going to introduce AI-powered drone gunships that they'll be known as mules to work alongside, as you say, the Apaches, the helicopters. And so these drones, they will carry missiles, sensors, and also jamming technology. My understanding of jamming technology, and you'll probably be far more expert on this than I am, but my understanding of jamming technology is the ability to sort of stop things in its track, if you like. So they actually stop the other military armor.
Yeah, it should be able to stop ground to missiles, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of like on a small scale, like the Iron Dome in Israel, I guess. But what they'll do is they will operate either autonomously or under human control. So it is designed to
see, that worries me, the autonomous aspect of this, because these are weapons of war and they should never be, in my view, not human controlled, because there are human decisions that have to be made in a war.
Okay, but then actually let's look at Iron Dome as an example of that. For anyone who doesn't know what Iron Dome is, it is this missile interception system that sort of, if you like, patrols the skies of Israel to try and limit the number of rockets that actually fall into the country. And a lot of that is autonomous, and if it weren't for that, there'd be considerable more casualties there than otherwise would be, so much so that even MPs in this country have called for us to get something similar here as a missile interception. I guess that the way I'd look at it is that autonomous can be a good thing, but I do appreciate that sort of if it's going out there with the intent of causing harm to others, then yeah, maybe autonomous.
Yeah, I mean that's my concern. Just reading that the triple layer system will give the army far greater firepower and aims to protect the fleet of Apaches, the Challenger 3 tanks plus soldiers on the ground. Now, my opinion and my view of that would be, if you're protecting soldiers on the ground, you'd be protecting them from potentially other human beings, other soldiers. So I would just have to know exactly what this could do before I'd go, yeah, no, that's a brilliant idea for AI.
I mean,
it just worries me. I mean, I think shooting a missile out of the sky is a very different prospect, and that does need to be AI, I would imagine, because that would be quicker than the human brain. But something like this... and
I don't want to cause fear, of course. You know, this is not necessarily something that's come to fruition kind of yet. It's just sort of on the cusp of happening kind of thing, and they're sort of starting to introduce it. But I put it to you that sort of course there is a possibility that technology can go wrong. So heaven forfend that you find yourself in a situation, or any of our armed forces find themselves in a situation, where friendly fire ensues because of a technology fault. So absolutely, I get it.
Yeah. I just think the further we remove human beings from war, the more war will happen.
Oh,
if you know what I mean.
Honestly, it'll be like living in the land of the Terminator. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
So.
That is my concern. That there has to be human fear and loathing of war in order to prevent it. And it concerns me greatly that without the fear and the loathing and the hatred of war, it just becomes a sport, doesn't it? Anyway, I'm in love with this little robot. Please tell me that it genuinely does have a pair of eyes, because Johnny and I were both saying that we felt that this was a Pixar movie in the making.
Yes, I guess so. These are tiny robots that, if you could imagine, being the size of a fingertip, really, crawling through underground pipes and checking for leaks and damage along the way. And so this is exactly what researchers at various British universities have been working on and building together. These tiny autonomous robots designed to inspect and actually eventually repair the UK's vast network of water, gas and sewage pipes. And they are affectionately known as pipe bots. And they're equipped apparently with sensors and small cameras. So maybe small cameras could be the eyes, perhaps, possibly.
It looks. I mean, just to explain, it looks like a sort of a burger on legs. That's what it looks like. I think that's the best description.
Can't see them serving that up at McDonald's.
No,
but yeah, maybe.
But it's got little legs, and it's got two eyes at the front, which obviously just make it look so cute. But they're probably cameras. These
I don't
pipe
think it'd be
bots,
very cute if it's covered in sewage. But
no,
anyway.
probably not. But these pipe bots will wander along or the network, the hundreds of thousands of miles of pipe network that we've got, and highlight any issues that either need repairing by other means, or they'll be able to repair it themselves.
Well, I was going to say, it better still repair it itself. And even better than that, and this is what personally excited me about this concept, is that you're talking about roadworks, in this sense, potentially becoming a thing of the past, because they won't have to dig up the roads to get to the pipes if you've got these pipe bots that are ultimately going to be under the ground working on our behalf to repair whatever damage comes our way. And best of all, they actually sort of say that as a glimpse into the future, and this may be a bit of a way off, but at the same time it's still a possibility, and that's what they're working towards. By around 2050, the ambition is to actually build and live in self-healing cities. So in other words, the technology in the infrastructure is so autonomous that it basically just repairs itself.
Again, nothing can go wrong with that, can it?
Well, it depends, I suppose, what they think is causing the damage. If they think the humans are causing the damage, that might be one of the symptoms they treat.
Exactly. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with this? But they are very cute.
You are being very cynical this evening.
I am, but I am cynical about all of it, because nobody looks beyond the end of their excited noses. And this is exciting.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah. But this is experts from the University of Sheffield. And I was again saying in the newsroom that this proves just how vital universities are at this kind of innovation.
It is.
They are extraordinary.
But this is why universities must also never lose sight of their purpose.
I agree.
This is it feels like we're living in a day and age where universities are losing their way a little bit, whether it be for degrees that, let's be honest, a lot of people don't think are necessary, and not to mention almost imploding under either staff striking over the most ridiculous things, or indeed the students not being allowed freedom of expression through fear of being attacked by other students. So all of this nonsense we're seeing in universities is really potentially quite damaging to future industry, and we need to, I think, get a grip. So.
But I don't know whether I've told you this before, that there was, I can't even remember, I think it was down in Kent, there was a university that was, some youngsters were tasked with making washing machines lighter, because they need a massive weight in them for when they're spinning. So that weight, when you transport the washing machines, it costs a fortune in fuel. So they came up with this, and it's so ingenious. I don't know whether it's being done, but instead of having this lead weight in the washing machine, they had a water tank, which could be empty during transportation, and then filled once it's in your home, and has enough gravitas, enough weight to it to stop the washing machine from walking across the floor. Just genius. I love stuff like that.
Very clever.
Yeah, just thinking outside the washing machine. Let's have a look at at a scanner now.
At least they didn't get in a spin about it.
Yeah, nothing to get in a spin about. A new scanner used for brain tumour patients, trialled in a world first.
Hey, well, you know how I am obsessed with technology helping medicine, and I know that you think very similarly.
Yeah.
But this pioneering new scanner is being trialled at Oxford University Hospital. So this is how sort of like the league we're talking about here. And it's offering a major breakthrough for brain tumor patients. So the actual technology uses a flexible electromagnetic coil that actually fits directly around a patient's radiotherapy mask. Now, if you're not familiar with someone who's undergoing radiotherapy because of a brain tumor, is they have to wear this. It must be terrible. I mean, the whole thing must be terrible.
I've had to wear one, not for radiotherapy, but to get the correct imaging of my brain. It's horrific. I mean, for me, it was horrible.
It is sort of like a sort of
claustrophobic.
fiberglass, if not plastic, mask that you have around your head that you are, for all intents and purposes, encased in, and it's designed to actually sort of help the guiding of the actual scanning and the imagery. Well, this particular electromagnetic coil actually sort of fits around the mask, so hopefully removing a layer of claustrophobia, if you like,
right.
Because of course you have that mask and then you're inside this tunnel. It's terrible.
No, I just hate having my neck locked as well. Oh, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got to be done.
I don't want to bring back any sort of PTSD here.
No.
But until now, doctors had to sort of manually line up CT scanners and MRI images together, which isn't always the most precise way of doing things. And as a result of it, this new coil actually ensures perfect positioning, and it actually helps clinicians to deliver pinpoint accurate treatment. Wow. So it's being funded by, as I say, the Oxford Hospital's charity in particular, and is expected to benefit hundreds, if not thousands, of patients each year. And as a result of it, what you're looking at is more targeted treatment. So one of the biggest problems when it comes to neurosurgery in particular, when it comes to dealing with brain tumors, is that there isn't always the guarantee, especially if there's malignancy there, of actually removing all of the malignant cells from the brain. And more often than not, what you see is you see instances where that malignancy starts to grow back again, and of course the patient has to go through further treatment. If this potentially sort of helps to pinpoint where that malignancy is, to hopefully a degree where they can remove it altogether, I just think,
I mean, that is
that?
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat that. That is extraordinary. And there are thousands of people a year who you know, will benefit from something like this. And let's be clear,
one step at a time. It's not quite there yet, but it is being funded by Oxford Hospital Charity, and as a result of it, Oxford University, Hospital Charity. As a result of it, I just think that it is an exciting step forward, and I can't personally wait to see how this might come to fruition and ultimately help. Goodness only knows how. I mean,
this is where technology is going with medicine, and like you and I always say, it is an incredibly exciting field to be using AI and to using all this technology. Phil, thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you. I will see you very, very soon. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, Johnny Hearn will be here.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. Kevin Schofield will be here in about 10 minutes' time going through the papers. But first we have Johnny Hearn, filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter who has been absent for quite some time.
Yes, AWOL.
Yes, yeah. Didn't get my permission anyway.
Nope.
Tell me about the movies that you've got for me this week. I'm particularly excited about 28 years later, but you have a very strong documentary first.
Yes, I'm going to make you wait a few minutes later to talk about 28 years later. Anyway, yeah, so we'll start with Grenfell Uncovered. This is a documentary. I don't normally start with documentaries, but I wanted to make an exception this week. It's a documentary on Netflix, and it's about the Grenfell Tower fire, which happened around about this time of year. Was it 2016? I think it was. 2017.
2017.
And it's a documentary that speaks to people who lived there, people who were the first responders, people who were involved in the investigations that happened after it. It involves a lot of archive footage from the time, from the fire itself, a lot of home video footage, official transmissions, broadcasts, particularly
it's not going to be an easy
it's not an easy watch. No.
I mean, I was working at a different radio station doing an early breakfast show at the time, and my car, we drove past Grenfell and on the A40, if anybody knows it, so it's literally just there, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It really took me a while to get my brain around it, because it was about 2:30, 2:15 in the morning. And of course, going into work, my entire show was people phoning from Grenfell, people who'd lost everything, people who had gone back into the, they'd seen their loved one go back into the building and never come out again. So it was a really harrowing. And I was going home so early, they hadn't even closed the road yet. So by the time I got home, they then closed the A40 because it was just so disastrous. But I don't know if I'll be able to watch it.
It's a very tough watch, particularly as there's a lot of very personal stories of people talking about their friends, their relatives, people who died, the last conversations they had with them, their last moments in some cases. It's a very harrowing documentary, but also it does look at not necessarily who was to blame, but the systems that were in place that allowed it to happen. Because
and nobody's taken blame yet.
Well, there's no one person to blame. That's the thing. It was a systemic failure of a number of events, and a sequence of events that allowed this to happen. And so it investigates all that, which is why there's never really seemed to be any justice for it. Nobody's ever gone to prison.
But there was a Grenfell Association that pointed out to the council and to the managing company that they were concerned about the safety
and
of
that's
this.
addressed in this as well.
Oh, is it?
It is a very wide-ranging documentary.
Amazing.
For its short running time, but yeah, very powerful, very difficult to watch at times, but incredibly moving, and just it's an absolute must-watch.
I will never believe that only 72 lives were lost. I will never
and when you see
that.
when you see the pictures and you hear the stories, then that is
when you see it in real life as well. There's no way that was just 72 people. No way at all. Not possible. So that's available on Netflix, and it is 1 hour 40 long. We have a trailer, so let's have a listen or a look at Grenfell Uncovered.
My window was alight, and it just raced towards me.
They were telling us to stay inside, but the fire was getting closer. We just dashed it for the stairwell.
It was just smoke, black. I didn't have any idea where they were.
I honestly believed it would be dealt with, because it's the United Kingdom.
Somebody had been grossly negligent.
This is described as sticking a petrol tanker to the outside of a building. This was this huge corporate scandal. There's internal emails that say, oops, we are not clean.
Sadly, companies were able to find a way around the regulations.
Any minister who wants to introduce a regulation has to scrap one.
We raised concerns with the council. We were labelled scroungers. We didn't deserve anything, so just shut up.
Everyone is blaming each other.
Dishonesty, malign governance, and greed.
Why did this have to happen? Why?
Yeah, it was the stay put order as well that that was catastrophic, because it was that is for when fires are inside the building, but this was outside the building. So that stay put order was completely the wrong advice. Extraordinary. I like I said, I'm a bit too close to it, but it looks fantastic. 28 years later. And is it 28 years later?
It's almost 28. So 2002 was the first film. 28 days later, the Danny Boyle film. Brilliant. Written by Alex Garland, who's gone on to do fantastic films like Civil War, which is one of the best films out last year, Warfare, which he also directed this year. So they've teamed up again. They didn't do the second one 28 weeks later. That was a sort of almost a separate thing completely. So they've teamed up again for this. It's taken a long time because of the rights issues about it, because there was a big argument between who owned the rights, and so nothing could be done with it for years, and they wanted to make one 28 months later, but they couldn't, because they couldn't. By the time they got hold of the rights, they kind of thought, well, 28 months is kind of gone a bit, so that's why it's jumped sort of seemingly now to 28 years later. So it's the same sort of setup. The UK is now become a quarantined place. There are patrols, European shipping patrols, to stop people from escaping from the UK. So anybody who's on the mainland in the UK cannot leave at all, because this virus still exists. The rage still exists on the island. But there's pockets of people who live, and one of them is this small community who live on a little island, the island of Lindisfarne, just off the north east coast, and they have a causeway.
Is it Scotland?
It's not quite, but they have a little causeway which connects them to the mainland, which of course is only open during low tide. And so they will pop across, scavenge a bit and then come back. And so the story centres around a man and his young son, and he's taking his young 12-year-old son onto the mainland for the first time to go scavenging and hunting for the infected. And there are two types of infected in this film. There are the fast, crazy ones, which are led by alpha male ones, which are even stronger and even more powerful and even faster. And then there are the slow, slothy ones that look like hippopotami.
That's who I'd be.
And they're wandering around eating worms and things. It's very, very bizarre. But the young boy's mother is dying, played by Jodie Comer. She's dying, and so he learns that there's a sort of a doctor, sort of witch doctor kind of character played by Ray Fiennes, brilliantly played by Ray Fiennes, of course, because everything he does is brilliant. And so he takes his mother through this sort of morass of zombies and whatever to seek help from this doctor. It doesn't quite go as he planned. So that's the basic plot. It's story-wise, it's the same as any kind of zombie movie. What sets it apart is how brilliantly it's directed by Danny Boyle, because it's cutting edge again. The first one they shot it on very sort of low-grade, lo-fi cameras to give it that real kind of sort of documentary feel, as though you were there with it. This one they've shot mainly on iPhones.
That blows my mind.
So it gives that kind of sort of slightly rough and ready look to it, and all the action sequences are very fast-paced, and it's just brilliantly done. And then it's all intercut with archive footage of old war movies, things like Henry V, the Laurence Olivier version of Henry V. There are moments of that, and the Agincourt speech, and then clips from this poem, a Rudyard Kipling poem called Boots, and a 1915 recording of it, a very creepy recording, which is sort of pockets all the way through this film to give this sort of almost disconcerting feel to the movie. It's really disconcerting to watch, and it's really uncomfortable to watch as well, which is what makes it so good.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Why it's so good.
Let's have a look or a listen to the trailer clip. This is 28 years later. It's a 15. It's an hour 55, and it's in cinemas now.
There were so many dead. Infected and non-infected alike.
That's why our home is so precious.
I feel he's a bit young.
He's ready, Jenny.
Once you walk onto that mainland, there's no rescues.
There are many kinds of death. And some are better than others. This is a glorious day. A day of judgment. My
children! No!
There's no discharge in the war. That is creepy.
Yeah.
That boots. That was the overriding poem through that boots. Oh, terrifying.
Yes, and if you like the idea of this, the ending is very weird, but the ending is there to set up what is going to be the 4th instalment of this film, which comes out in January, starring Jack O'Connell. He makes a little appearance at the end. So the ending is a bit odd, but really, if you think about it, it's kind of like halfway through a film. It's a double movie, and this is kind of the halfway point.
Sort of just drop you off the edge, or do you feel like
it kind of resolves the story in a way, because it's all about the family relationship between the boy and his mother and his father. So it does resolve that storyline, but it does drop you right into what's going to set up for a new storyline. Yeah. Which is going to be completely different. It's almost like the 2 Kill Bill films. You know, one was black and white and one was colour. You know, they're 2 very, very different films, but they were 2 halves of the same story. So it's kind of like that.
I love a zombie movie. Anyway, and the idea that 28 days, because 28 days later was just fantastic.
Brilliant
love that film. So the fact that there's going to be more of them, I'm really happy with that. I'm very, very happy with that. Part 4 coming in January, and then you left this right at the end, and probably a 5th.
There's possibility that there's going to be another one as well. Yes, there's rumours of that. The 4th one is definitely coming. They've already shot that. They shot it.
They're editing now.
3. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully.
Because
they're good. There's so many zombie movies, but it's very hard to make something new and original and different. And Danny Boyle's managed to do that again with it. He's reinvented the genre of zombie movies again, and testament to him, is absolutely brilliant.
And that poem is really, really creepy. Thank you, John. That's brilliant. Johnny Hearn there, filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. All right, stay where you are because it's the papers next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Nice to see you, Kevin. How are you?
Hi Petrie, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Did you think I had the rage the zombie. You didn't. You watch it 28 weeks later. Just wondering, you're not in the studio, so you must think I've got some zombie disease.
No, not at all. Not at all. Were you talking about the film?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd really like to see it actually.
Yeah,
me
too.
I loved the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying that. The second one, not so much. But this one sounds absolutely brilliant. 28 years later.
Yeah, it's getting amazing reviews, isn't it? So, it should be good.
Oh, I can't wait. I would be one of the lazy zombies, though. I wouldn't be one of the fast ones. We don't have an American paper to look at today because the news is moving far too quickly and the American papers are slightly behind. So we're not doing that as of this review. But as luck would have it, the first story on the Times is what I wanted to talk to you about anyway, and that is about these welfare cuts. Rachel Reeves has warned Labour MPs they will devastate the government if they vote against plans to cut Britain's £80 billion sickness benefits bill amid a last-ditch effort to salvage the reforms. I was saying earlier, Kevin, that Keir Starmer can't U-turn on this. I mean, he would lose his premiership. I mean, he would be so weakened that he would have to go, surely.
Well, you know, it is quite incredible. It's interesting that you should say that because more Labour MPs that you speak to now actually now start to touch on maybe he's not going to be in power this time next year, and who knows even before that, which is very noticeable. You know, it's the first time really that suggestion has been seriously discussed, I think, by a sizable number of Labour MPs, not just their usual awkward squad, maybe left-wing MPs, but, you know, more moderate MPs are basically saying, you know, he cannot U-turn, you're right, but he's boxed himself in this scenario. So we've had a pretty frantic day of, as the Times says there, cabinet ministers phoning round rebels, trying to twist their arm, getting them in for little cosy chats just to see if they can persuade them to vote with the government, or certainly not vote for this wrecking amendment which has been put down by the rebels. But the ones I'm speaking to right now don't seem to be bothered by that one little bit. In fact, if anything, the number of rebels has actually increased. So it was 108 first thing this morning had signed this amendment. By this evening, it was around about 128. So there was more. Actually, the rebellion was growing. Sadiq Khan also came out late this afternoon against these welfare cuts, and it really does feel like it's building up a head of steam. And Keir Starmer's probably quite relieved that he's at the NATO summit at the moment and not actually in Westminster, because his ears must be burning from...
I mean, he will not survive this. He cannot survive this. He's already a weakened Prime Minister. I never thought he was going to see out his full premiership anyway. But he, like you said, he's made the cardinal sin of completely boxing himself in here, because if they lose this vote, if he has to rely on the Tories to get this through, even if it does go through, but it's the Tories that give it to him, he won't recover.
No, I mean, I was just having this discussion with someone earlier on today. Actually, what's worse, they lose the vote or they win it, but depending on relying on Tory votes, you know, neither is a good scenario for him. And the way it's looking at the moment, I mean, when you've got a majority of 165, the thought of losing a parliamentary vote shouldn't even come into the equation. It should be virtually impossible for you to anger enough of your own MPs to make them rebel in such numbers. But there's no doubt about it that these welfare cuts are hugely unpopular, and certainly from the rebels that I've been speaking to, they're in no mood for compromise. They want this bill to be ditched. Now, there was a rumour went round first thing this morning. A Labour MP told me that the talk of the town in Westminster was it's going to be dropped, the bill's going to be dropped, they're going to have to go away and come back with a better set of proposals. Now, that's been firmly denied by both Number 10 and by Liz Kendall's team. But But let's just watch this space. It's still another week to go before the vote's supposed to happen. So we'll wonder whether that will survive. Unless they can start to peel off a few of these rebels and bring it down to it's at least less than 100, within the next 24 hours, 48 hours maybe, then I think they may have to consider pulling the bill because, as we just said, the alternatives are even worse.
I mean, either way he loses, right? So if the bill is dropped, he's U-turned. If he loses it, he loses it. If he wins it by Tory votes, then he's lost it. None of this is looking good for Keir Starmer. Do you think this could be used? In a sense, this isn't just about this bill itself. That this is his backbenchers really testing him. A lot of them are very unhappy with him. A lot of them are very aware of his weakened position in the country. And if you're going to go into another election, you're not going to take Keir Starmer with you. You might as well get rid of him now.
Yeah, I think this has been building for quite some time. So we're coming up to his first anniversary, which is next week, his first anniversary of becoming Prime Minister. The winter fuel payment debacle, obviously, I think that is the one thing that people will probably remember, certainly the first year of his term in office. A lot of Labour MPs are still very bruised by the fact that, they had to go out and defend this deeply unpopular policy on the doorsteps. They were getting absolute dog's abuse from voters. And then, in the end, the Prime Minister U-turned on it. A Labour MP said to me today as well, the grooming gangs situation, they had to go and vote against a national inquiry. They were told we can't have a national inquiry, and they had to vote against it when the Conservatives called for one. And then lo and behold, last week, Keir Starmer announces that he now supports a national inquiry. And again, Labour MPs are saying, well, hang on a minute, you're marching us up to the top of the hill, you're making us do these things which are unpopular in the country, and then you end up U-turning on them. So yeah, there is an awful lot of anger. I think on the welfare cuts as well, there's a lot of anger that it was sold initially as it's all about balancing the books. We need to save £5 billion, so we're going to cut the welfare bill by £5 billion. And a lot of Labour MPs saying, look, what they should have done was said, no, this is about reforming the system. The current system traps so many people on benefits, which is true. What we want to do is reform the system and get people back to work, get them off benefits, get them into good paying jobs. And then you might have been able to have a positive message, which may have got more people on board. They could have discussed it with disabled groups, try and get a lot of buy-in from those affected. But they didn't do that. They just came out and said, right, we're cutting £5 billion from the welfare budget. We're going to do it by reducing the eligibility for personal independence payments. We're going to cut universal credit, and that's what we're going to do. Oh, and by the way, we'll also help more people into work. But it was sold as a cost-saving measure, and that's really, really angered a lot of Labour MPs.
Yeah, well, this government is particularly bad at telling a story, at getting the public on side. In fact, the opposite is true, isn't it? The whole Southport, you're all racist if you're worried about this. The whole, if you want an inquiry, you're a racist. You're playing to the far right. It doesn't feel like they've got their finger on the pulse of the people of this country, and they're just not communicating anything properly.
No, I mean, one of the criticisms you hear of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves to a certain extent as well is that they don't get politics. They're not very good at politics. You should be able to sniff the air as a politician, and before you make an announcement on a policy, you've got to take a deep breath and think, oh, hang on a minute, how is this going to play, or how can we present this policy in such a way that it may, garner some more support. And they're just not very good at it. Certainly haven't been in the first 12 months. We've just been discussing a few of the things that they've done thus far that have proven to be very unpopular. And you've only got to look at the opinion polls. Reform, comfortably ahead right now.
Yeah.
And in terms of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' personal ratings as well, not great. Far from it. They're below the waterline, basically. And don't forget, we've got a budget coming up in a few months' time when they may well probably have to put up taxes again, having said after the last budget that they wouldn't have to do that, and going into the election saying we're not going to put your taxes up. So there doesn't seem to be any good news on the horizon either, and that's just adding to the air of depression amongst a lot of Labour MPs.
Yeah, well, if this is refused, these cuts, $5 billion a year, then taxes are definitely on the rise. Just a technical point, really, with these Labour MPs signing this declaration that they don't support the bill. Does that circumvent the whip? Does that mean that they can't be whipped into giving the answer that Keir Starmer wants them to give?
No, I mean, they would be breaking the whip. There will be what's known as a 3-line whip, I'm sure, next week, in which Labour MPs are told you must vote with the government, and if they don't, whether they vote against or abstain, then there will be some form of action taken against them. Now, there's all sorts of dark threats being made against to Labour MPs, threatened with deselection, being told that come the next election they won't get any money given to them for their campaign.
That's the common one, isn't it?
Yeah, being told you can forget any prospect of becoming a minister or anything at all, no career advancement whatsoever for as long as Keir Starmer is Prime Minister, if you vote against the government. So really heavy-handed stuff. And again, that's proven to be pretty counterproductive. A lot of Labour MPs are saying, no, it's like student politics, you're not going to scare us into voting with the government. You've got to try and persuade us, not threaten us. No,
I've never really understood the whole whip thing. It is undemocratic. The whole point is that these MPs should have to vote on everything, first of all, and should have to vote with their conscience.
Well, that's why the vote last week on the assisted dying bill, with the debate as much as anything, was quite refreshing, because it cut across party lines. It didn't matter if you were Labour, Tory, SNP, Reform, whatever. It was your own personal opinion. You weren't having to vote or give a speech based on the party line, and you didn't have to worry about losing the party whip, depending on how you voted. But those types of votes are few and far between. They're more like matters of conscience, like abortion votes as well, along the same lines. So, but this one is definitely absolutely whip, because this is a key part of the government's agenda now. And if it has to get pulled, or if they lose the vote, then that's £5 billion, which is going to have to be found somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. That's a lot of money, which Rachel Reeves would need to find elsewhere, be it cuts in other departments or raising taxes. So that's why the government is desperately trying to win this vote next week. But right now, it's difficult to see how they possibly can, unless, as we said, they have to rely on Tory votes, which is not a great place for a Labour Prime Minister to be either.
And usually in these cases, you have sharks smelling the blood in the water, those who quite fancy themselves in the position of Prime Minister. Any names that are sort of cropping up to you?
Well, none that would really surprise you, I don't think. Angela Rayner, everyone thinks, believes that she would, were, God forbid, Keir Starmer to fall under a bus tomorrow, Angela Rayner would go for it. West Streeting, I was having an interesting chat with a Labour MP earlier who was saying West Streeting is ubiquitous around Westminster. He's in the tea room, he's at receptions, he's just you can't avoid the guy, you can't miss him. He's everywhere, building up relationships with Labour MP. So there's no doubt that West Streeting would go for it as well. So that's two names straight away. If you'd asked me maybe 6 months ago, I might have said Rachel Reeves, but I don't think that's possible now. I think Rachel Reeves has damaged her reputation so badly that's probably not on the cards. But certainly Rayner, Reeves, there may well be one or two others, maybe Bridget Phillips in the education secretary might fancy a crack at it. But yeah, there would certainly be no shortage of potential candidates were Keir Starmer to be ousted.
Yeah, definitely the name that's been suggested to me is Bridget Phillips, and is circling at the moment, trying to position herself. We'll see. We'll see. Let's take a quick break, Kevin, and come back and have a look at the rest of the Times for Wednesday.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and with me is Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Another story on the front page, Kevin, is the UK to match China and Russia with nuclear jets. Britain will buy a new squadron of fighter jets that can fire tactical nuclear weapons to match Russia and China in the biggest expansion of the deterrent since the end of the Cold War. He's talking about buying 12 F-35As, which are American.
Yeah, so this is the first time, basically since the end of the Cold War, that the UK would have fighter jets which carry nuclear weapons. The last ones, I believe, were the RAF Tornadoes, which were retired in 1998. So since then, we've lived in a relatively peaceful world. Clearly, that's not the case now. Unfortunately, we had the National Security Strategy published today as well, which basically warned that the UK needs to prepare for a potential conflict on home soil.
Yeah, so, that was shocking, actually.
It was shocking. That was a real sort of slap to the face moment when you saw it. It really did make you sit up and take notice as to where we are right now. And, you know, all the mood music coming out of the NATO summit in The Hague is building up towards, you know, we really do have to get serious now about the threat posed to the West, primarily by Russia, but clearly, you know, there's instability, as always, in the Middle East, which has obviously been increased in the last week to 10 days. But yeah, so this is another significant step, change in the UK's nuclear preparedness. We already have, obviously, the continuous at-sea deterrent, the nuclear submarines, but now we're going to have jets which can carry both nuclear and conventional weapons, should they be required. So yeah, another, as I say, ramping up of Britain's defensive posture. As also we're going to be hearing the government's announcing an increase of defence and national security spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, which is the new NATO target, which should hopefully please Donald Trump, because obviously he's been telling Europe that it has to pull its weight more than it has in recent years.
It's interesting to me, though, that there was at one point there was a question mark as to whether we were going to go with the F-35 or with the Eurofighter. I'm not 100% sure that the Eurofighter option could carry a tactical nuclear weapon, but it's still interesting to me that I wonder how much of this purchase of these F-35s is to do with some of the horse trading that's been going on. I mean, Trump said he would be livid if we dropped our plan to buy American aircraft, but it to me it looks like this is another capitulation by Starmer to appease Trump.
Yeah, I think you may well be right on the money there, Petrie. You know, there's no doubt that Keir Starmer bends over backwards, really, to try and keep Donald Trump sweet. No matter how humiliating or how difficult that might be, you never know from one day to the next what Donald Trump is going to say. You know, we've been bombarding Number 10 with questions this week, reacting to Donald Trump's latest pronouncements on the Middle East, for instance. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure one thing we do know about Donald Trump is he loves a deal, and there's no way that he would have agreed to the economic agreement with Keir Starmer if there wasn't quite a lot in it for America, and this may well be an example of that.
Yeah, it may well. I mean, it's a fine aircraft, but it's just an interesting decision. The Metro, Kevin, it's also on the front of the Times, but I thought we'd take it from the Metro. Trump drops the F-bomb. That's a very clever headline, I think. But yeah, he was clearly rattled today at the thought of his rushed ceasefire, which, by the way, very rarely hold rushed ceasefires, but looked like it was fragmenting. And so he swore, which is very unpresidential.
He does a lot of unpresidential things.
Very
but
true.
This is probably the most unpresidential. I mean, I dare say that every single occupant of the White House has been partial to the odd swear word behind closed doors. But this is the first time that I'm aware of, certainly, that we've had one on the lawn of the White House swearing. And, you know, it wasn't just a minor swear word. It was a pretty serious swear word that we wouldn't want to repeat right now. But yeah, it really was another wow moment. When you saw the video, what came across really was his fury, his anger. He obviously was losing patience with both Israel and Iran. And we know that he's a very thin-skinned character. He had been very quick to put out a post in the early hours of the morning UK time to say, deal done, it's a ceasefire, they both want peace, and I've brokered it. And then bombing continued, and he was, I think, first of all, embarrassed by that. It was a blow to his ego, and we saw what happens. Now, normally, you would expect he'd be able to keep his temper in check, certainly in public. But for him to come out and say what he did, it was just like, my word.
I know. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, senior politicians swear in public. You know, it's maybe something that Keir Starmer might want to try. Might make him more popular. You know, it's one of those things that Donald Trump, a lot of people will say, you know what, he talks just like me. That's part of his appeal to a lot of millions of American voters. You know, he talks like they talk. He says what they think. And
it'll play well to MAGA, definitely.
Exactly. They will not have a problem.
No.
Now, we can all maybe clutch our pearls and be shocked that a senior politician, you know, the most powerful man in the world, can swear in public like that. It is shocking, but I think it will probably boost his popularity amongst the MAGA Make America Great Again base. You know,
well, I mean, he's the non-politician, isn't he? Like you said, it's like, in a sense, Boris Johnson had the same allure. It was that, you know, and Farage as well. Just having that ability to talk to use the same language, even if it's foul. I mean, I swear like a trooper off air, but you know, I wouldn't do it on air. But I just want a little bit of breaking news, Kevin, if you'll forgive me. There's been reports suggesting that, as far as Iran is concerned, their nuclear program has only been set back a few months. It is not the obliteration that Donald Trump was talking about. There is not the destruction that Pete Hegseth said there was, and J.D. Vance said there was as well. It appears that from an outside body that Iran has only been set back a few months from its nuclear program. So whether that changes what's going to happen, I don't know, but we'll keep an eye on that for you and let you know more as and when it comes in. Kevin, let's have a look at the Telegraph now. Again, British jets to carry nuclear warheads. That's the front page. And Badenoch will back PM on benefits if he cuts the total bill. So we've now got the Tories horse trading with a Labour Prime Minister. Again, not a good look.
It's not a good look at all, and it's deeply embarrassing, really, for Keir Starmer. Now, politically, he can't possibly agree to Kemi Badenoch's demands. She knows that, but she will enjoy putting him in a very uncomfortable position. He can't guarantee what she's asking for. Therefore, presumably, she will then have to say, right, in that case, we will vote against it. And if the rebellion stays, I think it's at 85, if 85 or 83 Labour MPs vote against, then with the if the opposition parties all vote against it too, then the government would be defeated. Now, at the moment, we're looking at about 123, 124, something like that, who have signed this amendment. That's quite a lot. Would need to change their mind between now and next Tuesday for the government not to lose that vote, which, as we've just discussed, would be an enormous blow, not just politically to the government's plans, but also to Keir Starmer's authority. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's quite a smart move by Kemi Badenoch. One senior Labour figure said to me this morning, actually, if she's smart, they'll say, yeah, we'll vote for it. We will help you get this through using Tory votes, which, again, as we discussed earlier, would be, the worst of all worlds, I think, for Keir Starmer.
It is just so, I mean, why, mind you, he's not really a politician, is he? But I was going to say, why you would paint yourself into a corner like this, that is a rookie mistake. It genuinely is. It's like that they did really with the winter fuel allowance, although they were able to find a way out of that by grace of the fact that inflation and was kind to them. So that's the only way they wriggled out of that one. This is going to be a humiliation too far.
Yep, I think so. And, coming on virtually the first anniversary of him becoming Prime Minister, it's almost like a very fitting end to that, to what's been a pretty dismal first year in office. If you consider that he was elected with a landslide, the fact that it's gone so bad so quickly is pretty remarkable. And if he was to lose a Commons vote on such a key government policy, that would just be a devastating blow for him. Now, again, from speaking to Labour MPs, they've said, right, well, next May is coming up. It's not that far away, really. You've got local elections in London and other parts of England. You've got elections in Scotland. You've got elections in Wales. Were they to go badly for the Labour Party as well, on top of everything else that Keir Starmer has put them through, as they see it, then I think that's when things would get really serious. Not just for him, but for Kemi Badenoch as well. You speak to Tory MPs, they're saying exactly the same thing. Then those elections next year are going to be terrible for us as well. We might have to change leader. Who knows where we'll be this time next year? We could have a different Prime Minister and a different Tory leader. Who knows? I mean,
especially if London were to swing away from Labour, because it's traditionally been a Labour city. And this might just swing it away from Labour. Another little story here says the poorest areas to get most cash from the NHS. So the working class areas will get a greater share of NHS funds, which always means removing it from London. But also there's the whole rebalancing, isn't there, now that Angela Rayner is talking about, and suggesting that people in the south pay more council tax so that they can help fund councils in the north. Well, that is such an ignorance of thinking that everybody in the south of England is wealthy.
Absolutely. I mean, there's parts of London which are as poor as anywhere.
Anywhere. You've got parts of Cornwall that are as poor as anywhere, right?
Absolutely. Well, we've seen Sadiq Khan come out this afternoon, as I said earlier, and against the welfare bills, and part of the reason for that is he's looked at the figures, and there's thousands of disabled and other vulnerable people will lose out financially as a result of these welfare cuts. So, as you say, Petrie, the idea that, London is some sort of cash cow that can just be pumped for the benefit of the rest of the country isn't quite the case. Now, there's no doubt, the southeast of England is the wealthiest part of the country. But this as well, I think, is indicative of the fear that Labour have about the rise of reform. Talking about redistributing health resources and stored in front of the Telegraph, but also, as you say, council tax, support for councils up north, where reform, particularly in red wall seats, seem to be doing well. So this is again, I think, another example of where the government thinks it needs to show, in a way that Boris Johnson promised to level up and won all those red wall seats in 2019 and then failed to actually do so, and the Tories paid the price for that last year. Labour feel that they need to basically succeed where Boris Johnson failed. They need to produce tangible benefits for the North and the Midlands, the North of England and the Midlands, really, in order to persuade these voters not to abandon them come the next election in the way that they abandoned the Conservatives last year.
Yeah, I don't know whether they've already lost those positions anyway. Kevin, let's take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and with me is Kevin Schofield going through the newspapers for Wednesday. The Daily Mail, again, talking about this humiliating threat to Starmer's authority. And the other story on the front page there is the Bezos wedding, which has not been very popular. It's in Venice that they are, I think they are. And there's been all posters and things put up saying if you can afford to shut down our city, you can afford to pay more tax. And I believe they've had to move their wedding party somewhere else because of how unpopular it is that they are over there having their nuptials.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and forgive my pronunciation here, they were supposed to be, the main reception was due to be held in the Scuola Grande della Misericordia, a majestic 16th century building in the city centre in Venice. Again, anyone Italian watching, a sincere
he just absolutely mullered that, so we apologise.
That was
dreadful. It's the Scottish accent mixed in with this.
That was so bad. When I started
well
off,
done
I was
for
like,
trying.
this isn't going to go well, and I was absolutely right. But yeah, but they've had to ditch that because apparently opponents of the wedding, the No Space for Bezos group, had threatened to fill the canals with inflatable crocodiles so that they couldn't get to the venue. It'd be impossible basically to use the waterways to get there. So they've had to downsize it, but I'm sure it's still a very nice place, but to the Arsenale, which is a historic complex of shipyards surrounded by fortified walls, which apparently will be much harder for protesters to get to. But yeah, the whole thing has just been dogged by protests and problems really for Jeff Bezos. And you can understand, can't you, why the locals, who are already, I think, annoyed at the amount of tourism that there is in Venice, despite the fact obviously it's a huge economic boost for the city. But I think the locals resent it. This just takes it to a whole new level. I mean, it sounds as though he's bringing the world and his wife to this wedding, bringing Venice to a standstill, and unsurprisingly, the locals aren't having it.
No, and it's like a sort of low-rent French Revolution, really, isn't it? That the inflatable crocodiles as opposed to beheadings of the rich. But still, the message is there. It is there. Right, let's have a look. The Financial Times, this is about Donald Trump lashing out. And Trump exposing NATO chiefs fawning praise. This was a message that Mark Rutte sent, the chief of NATO sent to Donald Trump, presumably privately, which was, it's cringy in its sucky uppiness as to how marvellous Donald Trump is. And Trump just put it out there. took screenshots of it, shoved it straight, never send Donald Trump a message.
No, I mean, there's quite a lot to unpack in it, really. I mean, you're right. First of all, the fact that Donald Trump publicised this. Now, you would like to think that he asked for Mark Rutte's permission in advance.
Apparently
but
not.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is remarkable. It's such a breach of protocol. It's such bad manners, really.
Yeah.
Private messages are supposed to be private, certainly not to be shared on social media. But also it shows, I think, how, again, thin-skinned and desperate for adulation Donald Trump is, you know, that most people, if they received a message like that, would be a little bit embarrassed to tell others, oh, here, look, here's someone saying something really, really nice and saying how wonderful I am. You know, you and I, Petrie, and I think the vast majority of the population of the planet would not want to boast about that to other people.
No, it would be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But this guy's unembarrassable.
Yeah.
So he took the trouble to screen grab this message and then put it out there. And when you actually read the message itself, it is just extraordinary how Mark Rutte is sucking up to Donald Trump, basically saying, you're flying into some great news. I've done it for you, boss. You know, I've got them to agree. It was difficult, but I've got them to agree.
And it's all thanks to you.
It's all thanks to you. This is your big win. And it's like, mate, have some self-respect, you know? But again, it was a message which was clearly not meant for public consumption.
Yeah.
But maybe he should have thought about that before he sent it.
Yeah, definitely. I've always got the rule, never send anything you don't want made public. just in case.
Exactly.
Yeah, awful, embarrassing. Anyway, the Sun newspaper for Wednesday, off your bike. This is their expose that they started on Tuesday. Migrants working illegally as food delivery riders from asylum hotels are to be arrested and have their bikes seized. Most of the bikes will be Lime bikes, but they won't be their bikes anyway. So this is a crackdown on food app illegals. Now, it's actually the companies that are breaking the law here, and also the idea that somebody is on a bike getting 75p a delivery is earning £1,000 a week is ridiculous. I mean, if that is the case, there'd be queues of people around the block wanting that job.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is, it defies belief, really, doesn't it? That anyone is earning that amount of money doing that particular job. It's not an easy job. We all use food apps all the time to get stuff delivered to the house. And, you know, these guys, when they turn up at the door, they are bedraggled, they're exhausted. It's not a great job. No. Although in saying that, if it was 50 grand a year, then you would probably get a lot of people wanting to...
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, and presumably they'll be being taxed at source as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And but you're right. It's the employers, it's the food apps themselves who employ these guys to do this job. They're the ones who are supposed to carry all the necessary checks in terms of citizenship, right to work here, right to live here, all that type of stuff that you have to jump through a lot of hoops usually to when you start a new job, and that should apply to them as well. So if there's going to be a crackdown, hopefully it'll be a crackdown on them.
But I mean, also, you know, what they're given, I don't know, what is it, a week to live on? It's not very much money. So, you know, if they want to pay for their phones or they want to pay for, I don't know, all sorts of things, then presumably then working for it is better than stealing? Or...
Well, yeah, and if they're paying tax, you know, that is surely a good thing. I would have thought.
I would have thought. I mean, you know, I'm kind of confused as to what the point is of this. Because look, I know that they're not supposed to be working, which I think is a mistake, because then they hang around, they're bored, and they start to cause trouble, or the neighbours don't like them or whatever. If they were allowed to take on these sort of jobs where that other people don't want, and then charged for their accommodation, that would be the solution to this. But they're not. They're trying to earn an honest living, and presumably, like I said, they'll be taxed at source. And paying tax. So I'm confused as to what we're trying to feel about this.
Yeah, I mean,
we're supposed to be angry about it, but
clearly, yeah. I mean, well, I think you're supposed to be angry about the fact that they are here illegally and are working. And I guess the inference is, well, this is why so many people are crossing the channel in small boats, because if you make it and you avoid detection, then you'll end up working. Somehow you'll end up with a job, so it's worth the risk, it's worth taking the chance. I'm guessing that's where knowing where the Sun comes from politically and the paper's views on, the small boats crossing the channel, I would imagine that's probably how they're trying to anger their readers by saying, look, these people are coming over here, they're not supposed to be here in the first place, they're certainly not supposed to be working. Oh, and look, they're being given jobs, and not only have they been given jobs, they're being given jobs that pay an absolute fortune, and that's meant to make you angry.
No, thank you for the explanation, because I was a little bit confused as to why I should be.
Yes, I think that.
I think you're probably right, but also this plays to the likes of Tony Blair, who wants us all to have ID cards. So I'm always a bit suspicious as well about the placing stories like this, to make us so angry that we go, well, if they're getting these high-paid jobs, then we should all have ID cards, so they can't. So there's always a next step, isn't there, to these things? Very quickly, The Guardian, again referring to Britain buying US jets capable of carrying tactical nuclear weapons, the PM rejecting pleas to put the welfare bill on hold, and the F-bomb by Donald Trump. Just before we go to a break, I wanted to just... this story just hit me, blindsided me actually. It's at the bottom of the Telegraph. I wasn't quite sure. I think I'd only just woken up, or I was preoccupied. A British national was arrested over a pretend wedding with a 9-year-old in Disney Paris.
Yeah,
I mean, none of that computes in my brain. What the hell?
No, I know. I read that as well, from what little information that you can get on the front of because it's obviously the main story is inside. But it's not only that. Unsurprisingly, I guess that this guy is a paedophile, unsurprisingly. But he's also staged fake funerals and film shoots with young girls in the UK. But I don't get this pretend wedding with a 9. I mean, how on earth? With a
9-year-old? I mean,
it defies belief, really.
It literally, honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, what? Have I dreamt? What is this kind of nightmare that I'm having? So a paedophile faking a wedding to a 9-year-old in Disneyland Paris.
Yeah. Apparently it was some sort of... Well, he's got a history of conducting bizarre stunts.
Oh, right. So maybe he was just filming this and thinking it was funny or something.
Well, utterly bizarre. I mean, there's something very sinister about it. Obviously this man has a strange interest in young children.
Yeah, it's beyond.
The whole thing is just
creepy and weird.
Bizarre.
Yeah, really.
Why he was doing it, how he was doing it, why he's chosen to do it in a public place like this. The whole thing's just bizarre.
And who was the 9-year-old, and who gave her permission to be there? And there were so many questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there.
There's a lot of questions. I did read today that MAGA hats are going to be banned from Disneyland Orlando.
Because of their political connotation, I suppose, they would anger.
There's a lot of people walking around, apparently, in these hats, trying to goad a response from people.
And I suppose there'll be a lot of people who would rise to it as well. I mean, knowing how divided politically America is. I'll tell you, it should be banned in the Situation Room. I mean, there was stills of Donald Trump sitting in the Situation Room being briefed by senior military commanders.
It's embarrassing.
On whether or not America should bomb Iran. And he's sitting there in his MAGA hat. And you think, this is the guy, these are the people who had to go at Zelensky.
For not wearing a suit.
Is under attack for not wearing a suit in the Oval Office. And he wears a Make America Great Again baseball cap in the Situation Room.
I'm with you on that.
It's extraordinary, really. So
really
if they're going
is.
to ban them anyway, you should probably ban them from there.
Yeah, I would.
It's just so rude, isn't it?
It is rude. It's just bizarre. Very strange behaviour. Quick break, Kevin. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie with you. Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK, is with me to look through the front pages for Wednesday. The Daily Star, again, are they got different sub-eds, do you think, Kevin? Because one day they go for the fun stories, and then the next day they just go for the obvious. They must be on a job share or something.
Well, what strikes me is that they haven't mocked Trump up as a baby.
Yeah.
Like they usually do. And even the intro to the story says orange man baby Donald Trump, as they always describe him. But usually they then have him mocked up as an orange man baby.
Yeah, there's more comedy.
There's an picture of him.
Yeah, there's more satire and comedy. I think there must be two of them. That one of them is quite serious, and the other one is a lot more fun.
Yeah, I know there have been quite a lot of changes at Reach, the owners of the Star and the Express and the Mirror papers. So I think maybe it must be different people in charge, because it's definitely lost its humour.
Definitely.
That it had for quite some time, because obviously who can ever forget the Liz Truss lettuce? You know, that was the Star, and that has gone round the world.
That was genius. We did Lettuce Watch here on this programme. I mean, it was extraordinary. But yeah, they seem to have lost their sense of humour. And I do think, I mean, I know this isn't a review of the papers, but I just think that it's a shame, because I think that's their unique selling point, really. Otherwise, they just become the Sun. It doesn't really work.
Yeah. Well, they became as you say, like what the Sun used to be. You know, the Sun always used to be good at having very funny front pages, and the Star for a while was doing that, especially about politics. Was making politics quite funny and accessible by poking fun at lots of politicians, which is great, which is to be encouraged, I think. And it's just not.
And there was always a little Rishi Sunak in a helicopter, wasn't there, on every front page for no reason. Just
exactly.
just there. Brilliant. It was good. It was good. I hope it gets back to its normal. It seems to have changed the flag at the top as well, which I'm not a fan of. But anyway, that's the Star. The Eye paper. Again, UK buys jets with nuclear weapons to create a deterrent from air and sea. I mean, these things are going to take years to be. I don't think they're oven ready. I don't think they just come off the shelf. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they've got a stack of F-13As that they're trying to get rid of. But I would imagine this would take a bit of time.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to come on stream overnight. No. That's for sure. I think this is just the announcement of the deal to buy them. So presumably, you know, they've got to go through all sorts of processes before they'll actually arrive on British soil. And we obviously have to hope that we never actually have to use them.
Yeah.
As well, certainly not for carrying nuclear warheads. But
it's a deterrent, isn't it?
It's
really?
A deterrent, obviously. It's very important.
Interesting, the Eye has that story about a classified report says that US attacks only sealed the entrances of 2 Iranian nuclear facilities and did not collapse the underground structures, setting Tehran's weapons program back just a few months. This is, I believe this is a damage report that people have been waiting to see, and that the Iranians, because Trump had forewarned them through Truth Social that he was likely to attack these particular nuclear sites, that they had enough time to prepare and put a load of sand on top of Fordo, for example, but also we believe, removed all the enriched uranium, all the scientists that have this knowledge, all the computers, and some other bits and pieces that are vital to their nuclear program. Caroline Levitt, she's let's not go there. She said that this alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence. I mean, they can't help themselves, can they? They literally can't help themselves. I mean, Pete Hegseth wasn't a low-level loser when he tweeted about an attack in Yemen. Anyway, the leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration. Although we do know that those didn't go deep enough. That was reported before the bombs were sent. In fact, there was a question as to whether Trump was going to have to use a nuclear bomb to finish off it, rather than one of these busters, these not dam busters, bunker busters.
Bunker busters, yeah, and you know, if you're right, I mean, given that he had been telegraphing what they were going to do for quite some time, we'd known for days that this was coming. Unsurprisingly, the Iranians decided to take action and were led to believe there were satellite images of the enriched uranium being moved elsewhere, because unsurprisingly they did not want it to be bombed. Now, we only have the White House's word for it that these materials were obliterated, but in actual fact, if they haven't been, and this report certainly suggests that they haven't been, if you're Iran, you're going to say to yourself, right, well, we have to speed this up now. We have to, hurry up and get the bomb, or else they're going to come after us again. So that actually may be completely counterproductive. Rather than destroying Iran's nuclear weapons program, it could actually accelerate it.
That was my fear. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Absolutely,
you know.
absolutely. So,
and also, there's no indication of where these lorries went. Because the satellite was focused on Fordo, so they scattered, and so nobody knows where they went. And the suspicion that there are many underground facilities that Iran has in order to continue with the program.
Absolutely, and they will not be wanting to sign up to any deal at all when they know that America and Israel are prepared and willing to bomb them. Then they'll say, well, hang on a minute, no one's bombed North Korea, and they've got the bomb. It's quite a handy deterrent. Ukraine had to give up the bomb.
And look what happened to them.
Look what happened to Ukraine. So, you follow the logic there. You can see why the Iranians might say, well, hang on a minute, maybe we should hurry up and get the bomb. And then they'll stop attacking us.
And that is the concern. And if this is true, then it actually will be an embarrassment to the United States. But Tehran's not going to tell us. Tehran is not going to allow us to look. They're going to let America think they did that because they want to keep using it if it indeed has only just been damaged a little bit. Kevin, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, as usual, to spend some time with you. Thank you very much indeed. Right, coming up, we are going to be talking about the welfare bill, this crashing embarrassment, it seems, to Sir Keir Starmer. But the idea is to save £5 billion a year. Keir Starmer is determined that this bill will go through. There are many MPs who are determined that it won't. But if it were to go through, where do you think these cuts should come? Who should not be claiming this kind of welfare? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It is Wednesday, the 25th of June already. And this hour is dedicated entirely to you and to your voices. It is literally your chance to talk back. So I hope you take advantage of it. We're talking about the welfare cuts. Now, the politics side of this is that it looks increasingly sticky for the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He is betting everything on getting these welfare cuts through. The trouble is that he has backbenchers that are revolting in more ways than one. So they have decided, about 120 of them, that they will not back this bill. And even the whip, it appears, cannot force them to vote the way that Sir Keir Starmer wants them to vote. Now, what the whip normally does, this is when a vote is whipped. It's the whip who's in charge of all the politicians, basically. He's like the headmaster, if you like. He dishes out fines, he gives them extra homework if they've behaved badly. You know, they sit outside his office for a telling off. That's the whip's role, if you like. But the whip also, in inverted commas, encourages MPs to vote the way the government want them to vote. So they will be called in and they will be said, look, you've got to vote in favour of this bill, and if you don't, your career is over. You'll be deselected potentially, or they'll say to them, if you don't vote the way Keir Starmer wants you to vote, you won't get any money in your constituency for that new road that you wanted to have built, or that new school that you promised would be built, or that hospital wing for cancer patients that you wanted. We will defund that. There will be no money. So this is a way of blackmailing MPs, basically. I've never agreed with it, but blackmailing MPs to vote against their conscience. But 120 of them in the Labour backbenchers have said, no, we're not going to be blackmailed into this. We are going to vote with our conscience on it. There are very few free votes. The abortion vote and the right to die, dignity in dying vote were free. So they could vote with their conscience. So it was outside of party politics, if you like. But that's the situation we're in at the moment. Well, that's the situation that Keir Starmer is in at the moment. Now, if he were to drop this bill, that would be seen as an incredible weakness of Keir Starmer, who is already looking like an incredibly weak, flip-floppy Prime Minister. The sharks are already circling in the water to take Keir Starmer down. I've always maintained that he won't see his full term. I genuinely have said that from day one. You can probably find tape of it somewhere. And this could actually be the end of him, because if he has to rely on the Tories to get this through, ooh, that is really embarrassing. I mean, so either he's got to drop the bill or flip-flop on it, which will prove his weakness, or he's going to lose the vote, which will really be a question on his authority, undermining him completely, or he's going to have to rely on the Tories to get the bill through, and there's already horse trading going on to try and get the Tories to vote for it. And they've got a majority, don't forget. This is politically, this is just awful. I mean, this is about as bad as it gets. Anyway, that's just an aside, really. The question that I wanted to ask you is that if this does go through, this is a £5 billion a year cut from a budget that is around about 80 billion at the moment. Now, I don't think anybody believes that this is sustainable. Every single year, the number of people the size of a city like Leicester join the list of people who are getting these particular benefits. It's not sustainable. I mean, we can't have a welfare bill being paid for by such a small amount of people, and the rest of the people are getting this welfare. Now, PIP is different. PIP is also applied to people who are working. So this is an in-work benefit, or this is a benefit to help people retain independence in order that they can continue to work. So you don't have to be unemployed to get PIP. You could be on 100 grand a year. But if you need extra payments to help you retain your independence, then that's where PIP would step in. It's unlikely to at 100 grand a year, but you know what I mean. it's based on need rather than salary or status or work status or anything. So I just want to know, if you were in charge of cutting this bill, because if it collapses in on itself, it's no good to anybody, what would you do? Who would you cut this from? What they're doing, what they're saying is they're going to make PIP more difficult to get. Now, my understanding from talking to you guys, and my brother has a PIP payment, rather than putting him into a sheltered accommodation or into a home, it's cheaper for the government. Let's remember that as well, please. That PIP is often a scapegoat payment that they make, because I believe that my brother should be somewhere where he's better protected, but there you go. They've preferred to give him PIP because it's cheaper. So who shouldn't get this? Because this is what we're going to have to do now. We're going to have to say that some people are more worthy than others. But I thought that PIP was difficult to get in the first place. I thought it was extremely difficult to get. So how come so many people are getting it? That it is beginning to topple the welfare budget. So I'm a little, and I know, having filled in PIP forms for and on behalf of my brother, that they are loathsome. I get form blindness anyway. I can't fill in a form, put my name in the wrong place, and then I fill it all in and realise that you've got to use a black pen instead of a blue pen. I'm a nightmare. I'm a nightmare. I should read it first, but I never do. So who shouldn't get it? If we're talking about this, who should not get this? And if you had to make that decision, what would your decision be? 0344 499 1000. You can message me on 87222, put the word talk up front. And you can also WhatsApp 0344 499 1000, and on that number you can also leave a short voice note. So I can play that out. Well, Sam can play that out. Paula is in Halifax. How are you, Paula? I've been worried about you. Are you all right?
No, hi.
Hi.
I'm not so bad, thank you.
Good. You're doing all right?
I'm plodding on like I do.
Bless your heart.
No. It's just like message after message after message. Hospital appointment, and I'm like, oh, God, give me strength.
You know, you just want a day off, don't you, to do nothing in, and then you've got to go and have a blood test or a scan or something. I know the feeling.
Oh, it's driving me. I spoke to James Whale actually on Saturday.
Oh, did you? Bless him.
I was really, really pleased about, because he'd put a post on Facebook saying that it was time to sort of give up his work. And I thought, oh, he's not on talk anymore. And I'd rang the night before, and Ash told me that it was on tomorrow, which was last Friday. So I were on straight away. So I was so pleased to speak to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll keep working as long as he, certainly that's his wish.
Oh, he will.
As long as he can. I think his wish was always that he wanted to die on air, but I hope that doesn't happen.
He said that.
Yeah, that's the old broadcasters for you. But yeah, I think he's doing some broadcasting from home now as well. So he may not be in the studio, but and we wish him well. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's extremely sad. But yeah, going back to this PIP, I don't really know where to start with it. I certainly couldn't work.
So what benefits do you get? So you get PIP.
I get what used to be called the ESA, which is now called Universal Credit.
Right. Yeah, they brought it all under the same.
I get the maximum amount of PIP.
Because PIP is it's an interesting one, PIP, isn't it? Because you get universal credit.
It is, yeah.
But this is a personal independence payment. So this is on top. It's on top to help pay for things that keep you independent, basically.
Which I use for, yeah.
So you'd use that for like taxis to and from hospital appointments, or?
Yeah, and I have a cleaner every week.
Right.
And then she helps me do other things that I can't do myself.
And you pay for her out of your PIP?
Yeah, I certainly do.
So this is the point, I think, that Paula, that a lot of people miss, and I was just saying it about my brother. The reason that they were so keen to give him PIP was because that is a cheaper option than supplying him.
I heard you say that, yeah.
Yeah, with some form of, more sheltered accommodation, more protected accommodation. So in a way, PIP is the cheaper option than.
Has your brother not got early onset dementia?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the querying that I've got that because I'm forgetting things all the time. I walk around with a sandwich bag when I go to hospital appointments, just so that I can see what's inside. Because otherwise, I'm taking everything out of my bag, putting it all back in, pulling it all out again.
You use a sandwich bag as your handbag?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh wow, my brother's a little bit further on than that. But it's still the cheaper option. So if they took that away, they'd have to fund something more expensive. And I'm just wondering with you, if they took your PIP away, then the council would have to fund you having a cleaner or somebody to help you with your shopping. So it's probably cheaper for you to have PIP.
Yeah, it will be, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, it's so short-sighted, these things. They really are.
I just think I also think it's so discriminating towards the people that are poorly, genuinely poorly. I don't think we should be treated like that, or anybody.
Well, they want to make sure, I think, that the people who do get it are deserving of it. But then you have to make decisions on who is deserving of it.
No, I totally get that. There's some idiots who go to work tomorrow and work full bloody time, and I'm all for that.
But why? I just don't, because the PIP, to get the PIP, you've got to score so many points, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
What they want to do is
you've got to prove it as well by your GP and your consultants, because they contact them.
But they want to make it more difficult to get. So I don't think there's any suggestion of people who are currently on it losing it. I suppose there's a regular assessment though, isn't it? So you could lose it.
I don't know.
Not you. I'm not saying you could lose it, but I'm saying one could if at the next assessment.
Well, yeah, it's one of those. I don't really know what to say because I'd be totally lost without it. But I have to pay. Excuse me. I have to pay people to do things for me. Yeah, and that's what I use.
Yeah, and that, like I was saying, Paula, is cheaper than putting you into a place. You know, I'm not suggesting they shuffle you off somewhere, but you know what I mean.
No,
rather than you having more structured social care, for example, that would cost them more to provide. So actually, this is cheaper for the country for you to have this PIP, rather than say they were to take it away from you, and then you'd have to go, well, I need help from social services now.
Oh yeah, I'd have to. I'd have no choice. I'd have no choice at all.
So it's just better that you just stay on PIP. It's cheaper for everybody.
No, I hate the word PIP. I hate the word the fact that I need it.
Oh, bless you.
It's no.
Of course you do. Most people do.
I said to my mum loads and loads of times. I said, Mum, I said, the times I'm owned, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, going to the nursing home, working in nursing homes on minimum wage, and de-icing my car at 6 o'clock in the morning. And you know what? Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most people getting these benefits, you're absolutely right, would swap it in a heartbeat to go back to a normal life.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. My life has changed completely. You know, like, it's like the cancer's come back. I've had to have my yearly scan. That's come back. I've got an appointment with a urologist in 2 weeks at the hospital. I've got early onset dementia. And I've also got a brain tumour.
Yeah, I mean, you'd swap that happily, wouldn't you? All of it.
Happily.
Yeah.
Happily. I'd give it to whoever. You know, I mean, I don't mean that in an awful way, but of course I'd swap it. Of course I would.
Mm. And I think things like this, it does other people. You know, the idea that you know, everybody on these benefits are somehow faking it. You're somehow not worthy of it.
I don't know how they get away with it. I just don't know how they get away with it because it's so hard to get PIP.
I know, that's my understanding as well.
Yeah, it's mine as well. I don't understand why these people are getting it. I mean,
well, they must. In that case, they must be. They're either brilliant at faking it, right, or acting.
Brilliant at lying, yeah.
Or they genuinely need it. And if they genuinely need it, then that's the whole point of it, right?
I don't think everybody genuinely needs it, do you?
I don't think everybody genuinely needs it, but there must be a way of figuring out if somebody's lying.
Well, yeah, they've contacted my neurologist.
Yeah.
Now, I had the cancer 2.5 years ago, and now it's come back. I don't know where until 2 weeks' time.
Oh, bless you. You must be terrified.
Yeah, I am terrified.
Oh,
I am.
I'm sorry.
I am terrified. I'm really frightened, especially when you see the likes of James Whale, and, you know, he started off with kidney cancer, which is what I started off with 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, but when James Whale has lived for years after his diagnosis of kidney cancer.
I know he was in his 50s when he first started.
Yeah, and he's in his 70s now, so, you know.
But I've only gone 2.5 years. I've only gone 2.5 years, so I'm like, well, what the hell's next?
Yeah, he was told 18 months 6 years ago.
18 months 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Why? We're doing well, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So you know, keep you know, your mind on that. And also the cancer treatments. I mean, the thing is with James is that every time he was told this was it, another drug came along or another thing came along, that's what's happening.
I followed him all the way.
Yeah. So there is hope. So I don't want you to be. I mean, it's just horrible that you have to wait 2 weeks. That's awful.
No.
But don't lose hope. There's so many treatments out there now.
But I've also got other underlying health issues. And when I saw the robotic surgeon from Bradford, from the BRI, when he had it 2.5 years ago, refused to operate on me because I've got so many underlying health issues, and I'm on morphine 24 hours a day. He said he just refused completely to operate, and said that you'd be in too much pain.
Oh. Well, look, you will let me know, won't you?
Of course I will. You know I will.
All right. Well, listen, you take care. Don't give up hope, and you let me know that what the oncologist tells you. Take care of yourself. Oh, bless her. I'm really fond of Paula. Quick break. Back in a sec.
the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and we're talking about this welfare bill that's going through next. It'll be voted on next week as to whether it goes through or not, and basically it is going to cut £5 billion a year, every year, off the welfare bill. Now, the Reeves and Starmer have insisted the changes are needed to rein in spending on benefits, a benefit that has doubled since 2019 and is on course to rise by another $8 billion by the end of the decade, despite the reforms. But critics are aghast that 800,000 people will be affected. So it is going to be. It is going to be. This is a big. $5 billion is a lot of money to come off a bill. So Reeves is saying that we need to do it. Starmer is saying we need to do it. There is no doubt that the cost and the size of these welfare bills is extraordinary. It is a lot of money in total. They want to cut $80 billion off the sickness benefits bill. Well, that's over a period of years. But more than 100 Labour backbenchers have basically said they're not going to agree with this, that this is the wrong direction. Reeves has got to balance the books. She is depending on this in the same way they depended on the winter fuel allowance that they took away from old people. Which they've had to U-turn on. Keir Starmer has also had to U-turn on the investigation into rape gangs, grooming gangs. So it's unlikely that he's going to U-turn on this, because he'd be politically dead in the water, and he's flailing as it is. But I do want to know from you that, look, every year the more and more people join the list of people who are getting these welfare handouts. So they are getting the size of a city of Leicester is what's being estimated every year. So it's a lot of people. So they want to make it harder to get. They want to make it harder to get PIP, and they're probably going to, make it a little bit tougher to get the full universal credit in terms of for disability payments. So I just want to know who you would stop from getting this, because somebody is going to be dropped off this welfare bill. So who should it be? Basically, that's the question. It's a difficult choice, but these choices are going to be made with or without you. So we might as well make them here. 0344 499 1000. Andrew has sent me a message. Andrew here from Bridgend. On the topic of PIP, the biggest increase in claimants are people claiming for neurodivergent conditions, especially ADHD. People who work are entitled to it, and I found out get the enhanced level of PIP. These so-called disabled ADHD brigade are telling the DWP they need encouragement to eat because they have ADHD. It's a scam that will affect the genuinely disabled people. It's disgraceful. But there are people with very severe ADHD that may need reminding to eat, or may need these independence payments so that they can live outside of the system. And let's not forget that if people have to live inside of the system, that is way more expensive than getting a PIP payment to live on the outside. But I do get your point. There will be people who get this payment who absolutely don't need it. I'm not naive. But it's determining how to figure that out, and how to test for that, and how to be sure that you're not abandoning somebody who needs our support. And that's what the welfare state is all about. It's not about really just picking and choosing who we think is deserving of of support, but making sure the system is fair and can determine who is worthy, who is able to get support, not just faking it. So it is a tricky one, and I'm glad I'm not having to make those decisions myself. But Angie said, I'm on PIP due to a spinal cord injury and other health issues. It makes my blood boil that this government is purposefully conflating it with means-tested benefits. Given the choice, an employer would offer the job to someone fit and able before someone with disabilities. So what would we do then? And that is very true, Angie. And a lot of people, they're blaming the person rather than the employers, or making it easy for people to have access to work. I mean, Keir Starmer has said he's going to make it easier, but we all know that that's lip service, and they'll take the money away first and then figure out the rest later, which is not the right way to do it. They should figure it out now, and then when they've got it figured out, take the money away from people. But they won't do it that way round. We know that. We all know it, because that's hard work. And if there's one thing we know, politicians don't particularly much like hard work. They like fast fixes and quick fixes and things that look good. They don't tend to want to do the graft that goes with it. Right, let's talk to Jason now, who's in Eastbourne. Morning, Jason.
Good morning.
What do you make of this, the cutting of the welfare bill?
Well, I spoke to you before about this issue. Yeah, no, it's not right at all. No, what they're going to do is just pick on sick people first, take the benefit money off them like we're doing with the payments, and ask questions later. And it's not going to work that way. You know, I've got people around here, including myself, who are very ill.
I mean, hopefully, the people who are already on it, unless you're reassessed every year. And I suppose at the reassessment point, they could ask you to provide more evidence or to have score more.
Well, I was already providing them evidence when they just give me some codswallop. I had to go to court with a doctor and a magistrate to get it right. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And when it's paperwork, and you've got to fill in forms, and you've got to wait months and months, and you go on appeal rate and everything else. We're just deliberately doing that. They deliberately cut you off. Well, rather than kick out asylum seekers who shouldn't be in here, they pick on sick people and vulnerable people and elderly people, and that's what they're doing at the moment. It looks as though. That's
what you think. I mean, it's different budgets of money, but
it's budget, it's money, isn't it? Money.
Yeah, but even if there were no asylum seekers here, I don't think for a second they'd be putting that money into welfare. They would be spending it on, some stupid HS2 infrastructure thing that costs billions and doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, but that's what they'd be doing. They'd be wasting that money.
What I rang up for is they're coming across with this one, right? And I know they're going to do it wrong before they've even done it. I know they're going to do it wrong. They're going to hit people who, like me, my next door neighbour's got multiple sclerosis, another one's in the wheelchair, I've got emphysema, right? They're going to hit these people first, and then ask questions later on, and then make you break your back, try and get it back again.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and that's what worries me about this. I do think that the budget needs cutting. I don't think it's sustainable, but there's clearly a bigger issue going on here, and my fear is that they will, like you said, like they did with the winter fuel allowance, they take it away first and ask questions later, and that's not the right way to go about it. And I was just saying, if they really think that you could go to work, then they've got to fix that first.
I could go to work. I can't even walk to the bus stop because I can't even breathe properly.
Mm. But they might suggest you can do a sitting down job.
That's not. Yeah, I'll use a computer. I've got conjugal impairment, so how am I supposed to do that? I can't even use a phone, let alone a computer.
Right. So well, then in that case, they would have to keep giving you the PIP. It would only be if
but it won't. It just take it off first.
That's what you think they would do.
That's what they're going to do. That's what I've done all the time. They just take the money off first, and then you have to go and break your neck again and get yourself stressed out, trying to get it sorted back out.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing to a neighbour next door. That's what you're doing to my next door neighbour next door. I know people are taking the mickey out of it, and maybe some people are doing it, right? And I know they're doing that. I know they're doing it, right? And you need to stop these people from doing that. But I'll give it that one. I'll give the names of people.
Yeah, but Jason, in order to stop those people taking the mick and lying and everything, they have to check everybody, which is why you get reassessed. So
I did. I took them to the X-ray and scan reports to the hospital, and from there, and I took them to my tablets, what I'm taking from my doctor. Took them to the doctors, and they've still done it wrong.
Why did they say they took?
I had to go and appeal against it.
Why did they say they'd taken them away from you?
Because they got it wrong.
No, but what was their what was their reason for it? What was their?
Some cocked up doctor.
What, that said you were fine?
It was getting paid about 5 times as much as she should have done to do it. And then when we went to court, we showed it to a doctor and showed it to a magistrate. They said, no, don't worry about that, mate. That's wrong. You shouldn't have done that.
So it wasn't really the system's...
You had the evidence in front of her.
Right, it wasn't really the system's fault then. It was some, you believe, corrupt doctor that said you were fit to work.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, the doctor was getting appointments, and they get another 2 appointments a day, and get an extra £50 a day each 2 times, right, to go and get some more money in for herself, right? And then she was doing that, right? And then she was rushing through all the appointments, and then missed it. I was actually got all the documents right in front of them, and I said, look, these are the documents, these are the appointments, these are the tablets, these is what's happening, right? And I've just been diagnosed with emphysema. You know, when you're saying to me, I want to run a 100 marathon. I said, London Marathon. I said, what are you on about? You're laughing, yeah?
They said you'd just run the London Marathon.
No, they said I'm fit enough to run the London Marathon. When I've got emphysema. I can't even run to the bus stop. Do you know what I mean? And they were saying that, you know what I mean? And I was thinking,
but like I was saying, Jason, they do need, they will need to keep checking. I mean, I know emphysema is not something that gets better.
I think I've got to wait 5 years now.
You've got 5 years now before the next check.
Usually 1 year, but now it's 5 now, because I realise now I've got a fatal problem.
Right, so that's something they do. If they know you're not going to get better, sorry to put it in that way, they will give you 5 years in between assessments. But if they think it's something that you can recover from, like a bad back, maybe.
I was surprised if they cop this up before that 5 years comes. I think that as soon as they'll hit everyone, and then everyone have to go through that again.
Well, I mean, my understanding, and I'm scratching my memory here, is from the last time we talked about this, is that people, for example, blind people, who are constantly reassessed to see if they're still blind, will no longer have to go through reassessments.
Well, it saves them money and time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So hopefully people like yourself, who they can see is not, this is not an illness that, like a bad back, that maybe you can get better from, that they will just leave you alone permanently. And that's maybe part of the quid pro quo with this, is that they'll say, right, we're going to make it tougher for people to get it, but once you're on it and we can confirm that you're not, we've not got an illness that's going to get better over time, we'll leave you alone.
Yeah, but will they leave you alone? Well, Keir Starmer he's beating crap out of someone in prison at the moment. What's his name? Lisa Pippen Connolly. We've been beating her up at the moment in jail at the moment.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that she, and that's.
No, it's only earlier.
But why is that Keir Starmer's fault?
Keir Starmer should have released her from prison.
She broke the law.
Well, she broke the law by having a dodgy tweet. Yeah, I'll give her that one.
No, no, hang on. Everybody who says this is just hurty words, it wasn't just hurty words. She incited violence. She suggested that people go and set fire to asylum hotels. Now, you just think about that for a second. If that wasn't a white middle class woman that suggested that, let's say it was a Muslim man that said you should go and tweeted out, you should go and set fire to, I don't know, a town hall where there's a Christian meeting. You'd say he needed to go to jail, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
See, but the thing is, I think that link is a bit dodgy. We're talking about something different there.
No, I know, but I just wanted to. It wasn't just. She could say whatever she likes about it. You could say, I hate immigrants with every bone in my body. I think they're disgusting. You can say that. What you can't say is, so go and kill them. That's where the freedom of speech stops. You can say what you like. You cannot incite violence or hatred in that way. You cannot suggest.
No, I don't even go and protest or anything. I don't do things like that.
But I'm just saying that there's some misnomers about that whole. I don't think she should have got 2 years, by the way, but she broke the law. I have no sympathy for that at all.
Yeah.
But anyway,
what I'm saying is, I do want this government to sit and have a think first before they start taking money on people who are sick, who can't.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you, Jason, and I totally accept and agree that they will do this wrong, and they will be.
Of course he will.
Yeah.
This kid starting with a farmer harmer. Of course he's going to do it wrong.
Yeah, it'll be take money away first and ask questions later. I completely agree with you, Jason. I don't dispute that at all. Good to talk to you. Thank you. A couple more messages here. I lost my job 18 months ago and claimed universal credit. My health deteriorated and I was diagnosed with vascular disease. I claimed a sickness benefit of around $400 a month, and then I was advised to claim PIP. I was awarded full PIP of £740 a month. My point is that at no point for the sickness and PIP did I have to prove anything other than marking that I had a sick note. My sick notes were never checked, my GP was not contacted, nor did I have to provide any correspondence. What? The system is incredibly open to abuse, and that's proven by the level of false claims. John in Hartlepool. That's amazing. So it is easy to get. You got, right, so you had sickness benefit of 400 and then advised to claim PIP. You were awarded the full PIP of £740 a month. No point were you asked for sickness or proof. Sick notes were never checked, GP was not contacted, nor did I have to provide any correspondence. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? It really does. Another message here says, this is all smoke and mirrors. All Starmer is doing is playing politics. This bill will go through and all he will do is a Tony Blair trick and massage the figures to make it look like he's actually doing something, but instead he's doing the exact opposite. I just think we could end up with a bigger bill from social services. That's all I'm suggesting, is that there will be some people on this PIP that it'll be cheaper to keep them on the PIP than it will be to take them off it, because then they'll have to get help from the social services and they haven't got enough money. Right, gonna take a quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie. Let's talk to Carol, who's in Manchester now. Hello, Carol, how are you?
Oh, good morning to you. Good evening. Whatever it be.
Whatever it be.
Absolutely fantastic. I've watched you tonight with her. And I'll be honest, right, it's benefits, right, are way out of my league, especially over the last 2 years. I have a sister who, God bless her, she's 54 years of age, lived with my mother in a rented accommodation in Bury after my mother died, not just quite a year ago. We had a letter to say, she has to move out. God knows where she has to move or whatever. You know, she lived in that property for 40 odd years. So I'm going on this side now regarding my sister with Pip. She has really learning difficulties and schizophrenic or whatever, but she's a really kind, loving, absolutely gorgeous girl. Absolutely gorgeous. I love her to death. I've had to put up with this, how I've had to deal. You're talking about, cutting welfare or whatever. Let's go down that area for these people that have got disabilities or any other, areas within there. Probably like the homeless, with the veterans, on the street or whatever. Nobody gives a damn regarding about that. About these people that have disabilities.
And what if your sister, like my brother, didn't have us to advocate for them? That's what I keep thinking. Your sister's 54, about the same age as my brother, actually.
Yeah.
He's, bless him, in decline and needs help. He couldn't navigate this on his own. No. And that's the other thing. Your sister wouldn't be able to navigate this on her own. So what are they going to do? Just chuck her out on the street?
For 12 months.
Yeah, I had to do the same.
I don't live in Bury, and it's the worst thing if you don't live in the council or whatever.
Same as me.
Probably, exactly. And I've fought. Anyway, I've got her a really nice little bungalow.
Well done.
Supporting housing and whatever. And the good thing about it is because she was living in a 2-bedroom accommodation, so I had some pull with her.
Yeah.
And then she was on PIP, she was on that PIP, with her. And us as being very honest, I'm going to go on one side and then another in a minute. Us being very honest, because my mother gave money and whatever, it went over the 16,000 or whatever. So her PIP is £500 a month. I can't tell you, we've had social, I've tried to have different organisations to help her or whatever. They're not intelligent enough. I'm going to let you know. They are not intelligent enough. They've not been trained. They've not been I'm not intelligent and trained, or whatever, but I'm better than them. I'll just leave that alone anyway for a moment, regarding with that. But then I've got my son, my beautiful son, who's in his late 20s. Something happened to him last year. We don't know what happened. He's a full fit lad, unbelievable, don't drink, nothing, high up in sports, I'm not going to say or whatever, took poorly last year, lives at home, took poorly last year and whatever. Do you know, I couldn't believe it. He was given more help than what my sister was. And even he says that. He can't believe they would portraying PIP on him. He went, I don't want it. I don't want PIP or whatever. I just want, a little bit of money each month. The very because he has no bills, he has no what you call it, or whatever, and they were portraying him. And yet my sister, when my mother died, had a bit of money, and it was only just over £16,000. She lost a benefit, so she's only on £500 odd, you know, like. And I said, you know, like, because it's my decision, horribly, that I have to do it, you know, like, and I thought, right, that's a good lump of money, you know, like, and whatever. So I'm going to go down to £10,000, and it should be only over £16,000.
That's right. You can reapply for the benefits.
Exactly. But we're not. We're going to leave it. And the thing is, she's just had to move. She's had to, you know, like, I've had to pay for everything, what you call it, or whatever, you know, like, and I'm so scared of the system with welfare because we don't understand it. I thought that is that sum that I'm going to go for. I'll go for that sum, you know, like with it, until, and then we can reapply for benefits.
Yeah, once you've spent just under the 16, you should be able to get those benefits back.
And I can, and we can, but it's, as a family, we feel, you know, like at the end of the day, it's our decision, what you call it. Nobody wants to be on benefits. Nobody wants to give charity, you know, like, to you or whatever. So, you know, like when they're saying cutting welfare bills and that, there's lots of people, there's loads of old people that are out there. I mean, my God, I've spoke to you before, you know, like about old people that I are living round here. Nobody wants that, you know, like.
Well, no, because you don't. Well, nobody wants to be beholden to the government or to some snotty-nosed person who's going to say, "Oh, I can control your money." Carol, your sister is very lucky to have you. I know exactly what you're going through, and I know exactly what you're going to have to continue going through. But she is very lucky to have you, Carol. Thank you. I've got to take a very quick break, but I will be back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie. I'm with you for the next 6 minutes, that's all. That's all she wrote. And we're talking about the welfare cuts, the bill that is being voted on next week, and to see whether that will go through. It is, I don't know, this is a really tricky situation for Keir Starmer. Not that I feel sorry for him at all, but this is a pivotal moment in his political career, let's put it that way, because he can't afford for this not to go through, both literally and metaphorically. He can't afford for it not to go through. So 120 Labour backbenchers have said that they will not be agreeing to this, no matter what the whip does to them. And I just think that this could really blow up in Keir Starmer's face, but we'll wait and see for next week if he can get it through. But the question I've been asking is, with these cuts coming, if they do go through, that $5 billion a year, somebody's going to lose out, right? And those who are already on it, I think you're fine until the next assessment process, and then you've got to have more points, or you've got to prove more or do more to continue getting your PIP. So this will affect a lot of people, and my concern, as always with these things, is that they throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't want anybody to be getting this benefit if they're not entitled to it. I'm fed up with being mugged off by people who are scamming the system, but I believe that most people who are on these benefits are there because they need to be on them. I think there is a substantial number that are lying, but I still think that the majority don't deserve this kind of treatment. Gary's in Poole. Hello, Gary. Good morning.
Morning, Petrie. Sorry, excuse me.
That's all right.
Thank you. Yeah, interesting conversations through the whole evening, actually. I really enjoyed your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Regarding the benefits, I get PIP. Now, I've got a sensory motor and an autonomic neuropathy. I'm undiagnosed. I can't pinpoint what's causing it now. So you can physically see my muscles wasting and all that sort of thing, and digestive system and respiratory system, and I choke easily. And yet, it was so difficult to get PIP.
Really?
I had to get. I said to the lady when she was doing the assessment, she asked me, how far can I walk? So I said, well, if a lion's chasing me, I'll get damn far.
Do I detect a Kiwi accent?
Sorry?
Are you
No,
are you South African or Kiwi?
Zambia.
Zambia, okay.
Yeah.
They sound very similar. It's the way you said pup.
Yeah. And but it was very difficult for me to get PIP initially. And I said to her, she went and marked down that I could walk more than 50 meters, because I said to her, if a lion chased me, I'd run.
And they got no sense of humour, these people.
And so my PIP was refused on that basis. And I was still very naive to the whole system, so I just thought, okay, well, that's it. Anyway, things changed, and I eventually did get it a couple of years later. But what I did find, and what I have seen at the centres where you go, you see people there coming in to claim benefits. They sign up and whatever. I think it was specifically more to do with job seekers and employment support allowance. And then you go around the corner and there you see, all of a sudden you see the crutches. They don't have their crutches with them anymore. And they really do scam the system. And the other thing which is very difficult, I understand that people with mental health issues also have can claim.
It was made. It was put on parity with physical disability a few years ago. Yeah, mental health issues. Yep, which are more difficult to diagnose, right?
It's very difficult, and I don't know how they're going to do that. Some people genuinely do have mental health issues.
Yeah.
I've now also been just lovely surprise on Saturday. I was told I've got to go for early dementia testing, And I really do have short-term memory recall and confusion as well, just to add to the lump of it. But you can see, and you can see my disabilities and all that. So I think some people it's going to be easy enough to say, okay, fine, we leave you alone, because I only get tested again in 10 years' time.
Yeah, I think that those tests for people like you will just disappear, because there's no point in it. It's putting you through the ringer. It's not worth it. It's not worth it, right? And it will save